Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Well, it looks like the bipedal serpent, aka Ghislaine Maxwell, has been handed another L by the Court of Appeals, and this time it has to do with the protective order. You know, she wanted to have the names of the accusers and girls that alleged that she committed these crimes, etc., etc., and it looks like the appeals court told her 9. That would be no in German. So, again, Ghislaine Maxwell brings something to court, and again, Ghislaine Maxwell comes up as a loser. You know, there's a pattern here, folks, and the pattern is Ghislaine Maxwell and her legal representation, they're not bringing the thunder. They don't have the goods. And you can only do so much when you're defending a guilty party. And from where I'm sitting, in my opinion, Ghislaine Maxwell is as guilty as they come. And probably for other crimes that we haven't even discussed yet. You don't spend your life hanging out with somebody like Jeffrey Epstein and being raised at somebody like Robert Maxwell's knee and not come out of that with a few scams, plots, and schemes that you're embroiled in. And for decades, her and her buddy Jeffrey got away with it, right? They were able to just run around and do whatever they want, pretty much. All these people in so-called polite society, like good old Chucky Schumer, who received $22,000 in donations from Jeffrey Epstein, they didn't know anything about it. Bad. We had no idea what Jeffrey Epstein was. Meanwhile, the rumors were hot and heavy. People were talking. And you even had the lady from Reddit, I forget her name now, talking about how, everybody knew what Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were. So, please, it's so ridiculous when you have these people who act like they didn't know what Ghislaine Maxwell was, what she was up to, and what Jeffrey Epstein was up to with her. And the funniest part about it is, we have some of the most high-profile politicians in the world, not just in America, who have had their hands in this idiot's dirty money jar. And those same people have the audacity to look down upon you. It's quite the scam they have going, isn't it? Quite the shell game. Anyway, to more pleasant news, I guess we should say, and that is Ghislaine Maxwell catching this L. So let's jump into this article by Law and Crime and see what our good buddy Colin Kalmbacher has for us. Headline: Appeals Court hands Ghislaine Maxwell sharply worded setback in litigation over protective order. And like usual, I prefer to use Law and Crime when we're talking about issues like this, considering, well, that's what they do. And Colin Kalmbacher has been very, very good throughout this whole entire thing. Very thorough, and he does a good job explaining it to the layman, right? People like us who might not be lawyers, but have been following the case and we understand enough to be dangerous. People like Colin Kalmbacher help fill in those blanks, though. And I always like to use law and crime if possible when we're talking about situations such as these. Alleged sex trafficker, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scuzzbag, and bipedal serpent, Ghislaine Maxwell lost an appeal in her criminal case late Monday afternoon. And now when you start losing these appeals in your criminal case at the rate she's losing them, it has to be concerning, right? I know if I was Ghislaine Maxwell, I would not be too happy with the way things are going. And we know that shit is just going to get deeper for her. It's like being caught in quicksand. That's where she's at right now. She is definitely caught in proverbial quicksand. And the more federal charges that end up getting dropped on her and the more superseded indictments that end up being dropped on her, the harder it's going to be for her to extricate herself from that, right? She won't be able to extract herself at all. She'll be stuck, and that'll be it. And that's the position she finds herself in right now. And you see all of these appeals getting denied, all of these motions being denied, and they start piling up, and it is not a good look for Ghislaine Maxwell, and her prospects certainly are not looking too pleasant at this point. We have reviewed all of the arguments raised by defendant appellant Maxwell on appeal and find them to be without merit, Second Circuit Clerk Catherine O'Hagan Wolfe wrote in the court's summary order. The appeal is dismissed, and the motion to consolidate is denied as moot. So basically telling her, your whole entire point means nada. You didn't make your point. It's a moot point, and we're not going to hear it. Your motion and your appeal has been dismissed, and there will be no consolidation. The upshot here is somewhat different. Maxwell filed her original request to file documents under seal, so none of the details of that request are currently public knowledge. Shocking, right? Let's keep some more secrets. I want to do everything in secrecy because I'm so innocent. I don't understand. If you're innocent, shouldn't you welcome investigations? Shouldn't you be receiving of them? Don't you want to get yourself, cleared of charges or whatever it may be? But all of these people, none of them want to ever have any kind of transparency. Everything's under seal and everything's done privately. And that's so that they can maneuver themselves on the levers of power within the Justice Department. The criminal justice system. That way they can use their loopholes and all their little tricks and all the little laws that were put in there as back doors by their best friends in Congress. The story we're always talking about here, and that's why they don't want it to be done in the public view. It's just like politics. They don't want it to be done in the light of the public. They can't make their backroom deals then. Additionally, her request would have only impacted documents that were never likely to become public in the first, or really any instance. Finally, the appeals court denial of the request maintains the wall of judicial secrecy around what exactly Maxwell was attempting to put on the record. So, there's a lot we don't know, is basically what this is saying, right? It is a case where the prosecution has had decades to compile evidence, and there were cases previously and investigations previously that they can pick and choose and pull different documentation from. So it's definitely the kind of situation where there is a bunch of gamesmanship going on both sides. It just depends now on who is going to be better in the courtroom and who is going to make their point, right? The prosecution, obviously, it sure looks like they have plenty of ammunition on their side. And the defense, well, it's kind of like in the old days when you'd have somebody stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson. It's almost over before it begins at this point with all of the evidence and the people willing to come out and testify against Maxwell. Jeffrey Epstein's longtime girlfriend and alleged co-conspirator, hey, I like that, fellow child abuser, general all-around scuzzbag, and bipedal serpent, unsuccessfully requested a court order modifying the overarching protective order in her criminal case in late August of this year. And that was, she wanted to get that whole entire thing modified and try and get it so the girls' names would be available to her. U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of New York, SDNY, Allison J. Nathan, denied Maxwell's letter motion in a 5-page opinion, an order issued early September. Specifically, Maxwell requested the judge to allow her to file secret documents under seal in certain civil cases materials that she received in discovery from the government in her ongoing criminal case on sex trafficking. So that was what earlier when we were talking about consolidation, she wanted to consolidate the criminal case into the civil case and pick and choose and pull. conspiracy, and perjury charges. She also requested the ability to reference, but not file, additional discovery material produced by the government to her criminal defense team. So she wanted to have her cake and eat it too, basically, is what's going on here. She wants to be able to file this stuff under, file it under seal. And then what she wants is to be able to keep it all secret as she picks and chooses what she's going to use in her criminal case or her civil case. And that's what was going on here. That was under appeal. And that is what the appeals court dismissed today. Upon receipt of some of the discovery, Maxwell filed the instant request, which seeks modification of the protective order in order to use documents produced in the criminal case and other civil proceedings. The court's order explains. So again, like I was just explaining, she wants to use the documentation in both cases and keep it under seal at the same time. So basically, she's trying to keep everything hush-hush where she only knows and there's no unsealed documents. And the court is obviously not having it. She bases her request on the premise that disclosure of the documents to the relevant judicial officers is allegedly necessary to ensure the fair adjudication of issues being litigated in those civil matters. Judge Nathan went on to rubbish Maxwell's arguments. But after 14 single-spaced pages of heated rhetoric, the defendant proffers no more than vague, speculative, and conclusory assertions as to why that it is the case. She provides no coherent explanation of what argument she intends to make before these courts that requires the presentation of the materials received in discovery in this criminal matter under the existing terms of the protective order in this case. Basically, Judge Nathan is lambasting her for having nothing. She's not bringing any kind of coherent argument or legal challenge to what is going on here. She's basically just saying, this is what I want, and then not providing any legal reasoning for that to occur. And she furnishes no substantive explanation regarding the relevance of the documents to decisions to be made in those matters, let alone any explanation of why modifying the protective order in order to allow such disclosure is necessary to ensure the fair adjudication of those matters. In sum, the arguments Maxwell presents to the court plainly fail to establish good cause. The defendant's request is denied on this basis. So again, very adamant, both the appeals court and Judge Nathan, on the fact that there was not a coherent argument made by Ghislaine Maxwell to prove her case. Maxwell appealed the court's order 2 days later, filing a notice of appeal with the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. The appeal was shuttered by the appellate court Monday's summary order, which has no precedential effect because it is a determination that doesn't contain a technical legal opinion. The 3-judge panel did, however, take the time out to briefly dispense with some of Maxwell's legal arguments. The appeals court noted that they are bound by the final judgment rule, which limits their jurisdiction to the final decisions of the district courts. And because Maxwell's criminal case is currently ongoing, there are just 4 circumstances in criminal cases that come within. Supreme Court issued exemptions to the final judgment rule. So they're letting Ghislaine Maxwell know here that there is just no way for them to flip this even if they wanted to. They're bound by the final judgment rule, which limits their jurisdiction. We decline to exercise jurisdiction where we have none, and accordingly dismiss this appeal for lack of jurisdiction, the court's orders notes. So again, flipped it right back to Nathan. They said it's not in their jurisdiction, and they're going to respect the lower court's order here and what Nathan ordered originally. The circuit judges also dismissed Maxwell's argument seeking a writ of mandamus forcing the district court to modify the protective order. Here, Maxwell failed to demonstrate that such exceptional circumstances exist and that the district court usurped its power or abused its discretion, the Second Circuit Court noted. Accordingly, we declined to issue a writ modifying the protective order. So again, they denied it. No, we're not issuing this writ. You have not proven to us that these exceptional circumstances even exist. Never mind enough for us to provide you with a writ. Maxwell, the alleged primary enabler of a years-long global child sex conspiracy, also requested that her criminal case be consolidated with the ongoing civil case initiated by Epstein survivor Virginia Roberts. And you notice how Colin calls her a survivor here, not a victim, not any of the other garbage we see with some of the other articles. And I take notice of that. And those are the kind of articles that I like to read when we meet up here on the podcast to go over this stuff, as opposed to these half-assed people who just got involved with the case, or like one of these weird-ass podcasts that have just popped up out of nowhere, out of the blue, talking all kinds of nonsense. You know, I really appreciate how Colin conducts himself here. The court quickly binned that request based on mootness due to their lack of jurisdiction, but went on to characterize some of the defendants' legal arguments. Here, the parties, judges, and legal issues presented in these appeals lack a common identity, the Second Circuit concluded. The criminal appeal concerns a denial of Maxwell's motion to modify a protective order, while the civil appeal concerns an unsealing order. Further, as the district court correctly noted, Maxwell provides no coherent explanation connecting the discovery materials at issue in the criminal case to the civil litigation. And then the 4-page ruling is also on this link here that we're going to provide at the Law and Crime website. So the court wasn't having it. There's no way they were going to consolidate this. We knew they weren't going to consolidate this. And after the Second Circuit Court ruled to unseal those documents and uphold the ruling, I knew that it was going to be a cascade of very unfavorable decisions coming down the pipe for Ghislaine Maxwell. And guess what? Good. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with the episode are included in the description box. To everyone who has donated to the show, thank you folks so much. I will be back later on today, and we will continue this conversation then.